Hello and welcome back, folks. Did you like that Saba versus Egypt match the other day? Well, here was the rematch. Those two players wanted to have a rematch of it. Different map, so it'll be a slightly different setting, and here it is. Let's check out this Egyptian army. This one is going to be thorax swords again. Quite a few of them across the front. And then in the back, it looks like a single Galatian sword's been there, a royal thorax sword again. Make that two Galatian swords. A couple of Egyptian cav. Couple Levi Thurios. This may be pretty much the same army. Yeah, I think it's the same army. And let's see if the Saba has the Sabians. Sabians? I don't know what the right one is there. Let's see if they pretty much brought the same army. I do see the Slingers. I do see the Musket Marauders and the Sabian Camel Cataphracts. And I'm assuming that the Marib Camel Cataphract General is probably right there in the center, but hidden in some scrub. Because hiding a camel in scrub is a thing. So yeah, it does look like the armies are pretty much the same. The terrain's going to be a little different here than the Dolmen of Karnak, where we saw the Sabians come in with a very nice flanking attempt there early. This one, though, could play out a little differently. I mean, those Egyptian slingers, there's only two of them, and they're going to be up against a lot more slingers on the other side. Looks like some desert levy moving forward to kind of push the initial engagement here to see if they can maybe get up into enemy slingers, bait a cavalry charge, or whatever else it is that they want to do. Those cheap units can be valuable when used properly to cause an engagement to ultimately go in your favor. So Ptolemaic Cavalry General, actually. I don't think we saw this last time, so that might be a slight change-up. Maybe we did. The Ptolemaic Cav General is a cool one. Similar to Companion Cavalry, very elite Lancer Cav. Not a cataphract by any means, but still an elite Lancer Cav. Cheap infantry clashing with the Galatian swords here, so that's going to be your Desert Levy. Here comes the mercenary Muscat Marauders on this flank. We'll see how they end up matching up against the Egyptian swords this time. These Muscat Marauders got their frenzied charge in and are doing some very good damage into that Galatian sword that had been previously engaged. Yep, we're going to see a crushing charge here, so this flank is going to get hit hard. Egypt's going to send reinforcements that way. A big charge all across the front line from the Camel Cataphracts supporting the infantry. That could work as long as the Cataphracts pull back quickly and try and minimize the javelin fire that they eat in return. But you can see these Nubian spearmen moving up. They have a rapid advance, but they're going to get crushed by the Sabaean Camel Cataphracts. They're absolutely leveled. So the camels pushing on through. They do have the support of the Muscat Marauders. These Thurios spears back here are a real problem for Saba at the moment. But honestly, I think if Saba will just fix the Egyptian line, and then start just cycle charging those Camel Cataphracts in there, and use their slingers to target as best they can into these units in the back line, they might win. Do have the Egyptian cavalry and the Ptolemaic cavalry here they got to deal with, but it did at least temporarily silence those Thurios spears. Camels do scare horses, but, I mean, elite Lancer Cav, I don't expect them to fall apart quickly. Speaking of fall apart quickly, some of the Muscat Marauders are falling apart up front, which is not speaking well for the Sabaeans. That is just another brutal, crushing charge. Look at that, just ran right over that Nubian spear unit. They are so light that they just can't stand up to that. Muscat Marauders do have the support of the Camel Cataphracts here, who have gotten some decent kills. There's slinger fire raging into this fight. I can't tell what it's hitting. It may be the Ptolemaic Cavalry General, but it's causing a lot of friendly fire as well. Still quite a few Muscat Marauders here. They're going to be needed, though. They've got their work cut out for them. It's not an easy fight for them at the moment. These Camel Cataphracts are really bruising some of the Egyptian units. This one managed to get through into the slingers. That's bad news for Egypt. And the slingers on this flank need to make their presence felt. There's a Marib Camel Cataphract still back here, as well as a decent strength Sabaean Camel Cataphract. They need to stay out of... Yeah, those Levi Thurios spears are just way too dangerous to be bringing your Cataphracts close like this, unless you're going to get a quick charge in there. They're not any good in a melee, but they will hurt you from range. Especially if you keep the cycle charges coming, they won't be good in a melee. The Muscat Marauders are just kind of falling apart here. They can't stand up, it looks like, for a long time against these sturdier infantry. This one's a Royal Thorax Sword. It's got 100 kills already, and the Muscat Marauders are struggling there. So Saba's infantry's kind of falling apart. They do have a fair few Cataphracts and Slingers left, though, so don't think the battle's over yet if they can keep their slingers alive and make them be effective, but starting to be quite a few infantry break out victorious from their fights from Egypt. Egypt still has its Ptolemaic cavalry general in pretty solid shape over here. And it is now headed straight towards those slingers. The Marib camel cataphract's going to need to protect, but there is a Levithurio spear here to add to the complexity, and there's also a thorax sword on the way in, so I feel like Egypt is gaining the upper hand here because Saba is running out of infantry to support a fight. A few Musket Marauders going to come back in against that, and that Royal Thorax sword is just taking a dump on those mercenaries. Let's see if the slingers can do their job here against the Thorax swords. And the Camel Cataphract comes in to try and silence the Ptolemaic cavalry, but it was already damaged, and then it's also being attacked by an Egyptian cavalry, and it's taking a pretty solid beating here. There's going to be a lot of sling fire pouring in, though. There's a high chance of friendly fire, and then that Levithurio spear is just enough to disrupt one of the slingers, which may save the Ptolemaic general here. Camel Cataphract's trying to get out of there and cycle, but I think Egypt is wrapping this one up. I really like the aggressive effort with those cataphracts. I mean, this one's picked up 273 kills. It has really done a pretty spectacular job. Just not enough here for Saba to survive this one. The Musket Marauders just could not hold out against the fairly sturdy backbone line here that Egypt has. Thorax swordsmen are not amazing, but against, a faction that doesn't come with elite infantry, they're sturdy. They'll do just fine, like in this case. Now, had this been, for instance, the Kush with the Shotel warriors, nah, those thorax swords would have just fallen apart, just like a hot knife through butter. Would have been no problem for the Kush, but it's a little different here, I think, for the Sabaeans, obviously. And again, nicely played. This Camel Cataphract back here has rocketed itself over 300 kills and should be able to take out most of this thorax sword as well. Brutal units, these. I still wish that the cataphracts in this game did have an alternate armor-piercing melee attack after the charge like they did in Rome 1. I think that's one of the things that made cataphracts unique. So that would have been something I would have liked to have seen in this game, where they get a good charge and then they can also get that alternate attack, pull out their maces, and start to cut through armor. I think that would have made Parthia, Armenia, and some of those other factions a little more dangerous and a little more interesting as factions. I like the way they're set up, and I think something very small like that mace attack added could have made a big difference here. Look at these cataphracts just cycle charging and crushing that thorax sword. Absolutely love it. Yeah, those cataphracts won't be able to carry the day here, so we'll fast forward. But still, interesting battle. Cool rematch. It looks like Egypt, though, is going to carry the day. It's always cool to see players rematch. It's kind of fun sometimes to see what you can come in and do differently from one battle to the next. A gruesome battle. Anyway, congrats to Hotel Soap, and nicely played to Viriat here. Saba is a cool faction. Fun to use, sometimes tricky to use. Musket Marauders are a good unit. They're just kind of difficult to make work as an entire backbone, and you have to use that aggressive camel support, which you did here. Didn't work out in this case. Egypt just able to get too many javelins into the fight from its Levithurio spears, which is it's a clutch unit for Egypt. It makes them uniquely dangerous to these cavalry, and then they just needed something in a sturdy line here, which Egypt had with 5 thorax swords and the single Royal Thorax. That Royal Thorax sword was absolutely owning, 195 kills and barely touched. Ptolemaic cavalry, interesting pick, and it actually ended up working out pretty good here. It was used intelligently, triple chevron, so well played to both players. Anyway, HeirofCarthage signing out for now. I'll see you all soon with some more action and Total War Rome 2.